The Nuggets have 6 starters, which is causing some complications and some questions and some convention on what exactly they need to do with 6 starters for 5 spots. Plus, we're going to talk scariest trades around the association. What would be the trade that would scare you most in the Western Conference? And what's the trade the Nuggets would make that would scare you the most? And we're going to reset some Nuggets expectations for this season. All that and more on No Jinx on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us, making us part of your day, and being with us Monday through Friday, being an everydayer, as we like to call them, hanging out with us, whether it's on the live shows at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets or catching us on the podcast. We do appreciate you guys being part of this community. On today's show, we're going to talk about resetting some of the Nuggets expectations. We're going to get into some scary hours. What are the trades that around the Western Conference would send shivers down your spine as a Nuggets fan? Plus, what's the trade that the Nuggets could make that would absolutely make you go, ah? And we will talk today about starters and the ongoing conversation about that. The headline of this episode on youtube.com says controversy, and it's not really a controversy. It's just like people have differing opinions. But guess what? YouTube is a competitive environment, and so I do things in order for us to win because it's important to me. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt Moore. I run the Denver Dig newsletter, Hardwood Paroxysm newsletter. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm co-host of Locked On NBA Daily. His name's Ryan Blackburn. He is the Nuggets writer for Mile High Sports. You can catch him on the Pickaxe and Roll podcast daily, and he is going to do his laundry tomorrow like a good boy, which I'm very happy. I'm glad that Ryan's getting a break. Ryan was like trying not to like say it, but I could tell at the game the other night he was nearing overload, and like everyone gets burned out, man. Season's long. You're talking about the same stuff. It's a lot of stress, especially I think from a fan performance. I think it's tougher too, trying to get, especially after, as crazy as the season I think has already been. Not that there's been like insane things. It's just been like very high highs and very low lows, right?
It's the wild swings, and I think we saw that very clearly over the weekend with Denver, where Minnesota wins in such a drastic way, and it's just the most emotionally like punch of the face, punch of the gut that you could possibly ask for as a Nuggets fan, with that team winning in that way. And like Michael Malone actually said it, he's like, hey, we don't really do rivalries if there's like maybe I guess the Minnesota Timberwolves, but not really. I think he was probably feeling that one too.
That's a good question. Are they rivals? The Blazers never felt like rivals. The Wolves feel like more rivals than the Blazers did. They're the closest thing that Denver has to a rival.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think if they play the Mavericks in the playoffs, that'll be a rivalry too. I think
that'll be fun.
That's pretty much it. Let's talk about the starters. Let's talk about the starters. So I want to start kind of right here. AG is okay coming off the bench because AG is Mr. Nugget and he's the best. Shout out DNVR. Like, AG's fine doing it. If that's what the team needs, then he'll do that. There's no complaint there. We know Russell come off the bench. He has no complaints doing that. He's fine with whatever the team needs. Everybody is very much like, we can do something special. We can win a title. We're willing to do what it takes to sacrifice, which is great. I think the question is, and it's an interesting one. I don't know how to feel about it because it goes against so many things that I consider to be ironclad, which is like, if you pay Aaron Gordon what you pay him to, how does he not start? And I would think like the defense would be there. And like the Wolves game is a good example of this, that there's games where you're just going to need more wings and forward defense. Like you're just going to need better ones, and especially on the back line. So I think a really good conversation to have is just like, should they just go to a flex starter where some games Russ starts and some games Aaron starts? I don't know that they would have a problem with that setup.
It's a fascinating idea, and it's one that very few teams that are at this level go to. It's very often that a team decides on their starting unit and says, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to handle this. And it's only when there is some uncertainty where teams often go that route. Russ has earned enough of an opportunity here to play the minutes and play the minutes with Jokic. The team is so good in those minutes with Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic that it has become a conversation. And it's one that I did not expect to be having at this point. And Aaron Gordon has been injured enough at this point that, hey, is it the worst idea to cut his minutes down and to say, hey, we don't know if you can survive for this entire season, given that you've spent, 20 games out already due to a right calf strain? Like, that is a lot of time. And I think Denver's goal should be, how can we get to the playoffs in one piece and playing the best basketball that we possibly can? So it's a fair question. I tend to think that they'll just say, screw that, and just throw Aaron back into the starting lineup and put Russell Westbrook to the bench. But it's a fascinating one. Christian Brown has started every single game for the Nuggets this year. He has not missed a game other than one that he missed with a back absence, I believe. But every time he's played, he started. So I don't expect him to go to the bench, really.
Jokic, Russ, Aaron, and Christian have played 136 minutes together. They have a 132.9 offensive rating and a 105 defensive rating. They beat teams by 27.9 points per 100 possessions they play together with those four on the floor. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. I do think that if I remember back to some of those games, they were not facing the staunchest competition in that stretch.
Sure.
However, that doesn't dismiss it as a thing that they can't ever do. Again, this just kind of comes back to my philosophy over the course of these next 2.5 months. I need to see Denver playing well against elite teams. And if they can play well, then great. And if that's with that particular quartet, then awesome. Is there any thought to Michael Porter coming off the bench and just saying, hey, Aaron is going to be the starting power forward and you just keep those three guards out there?
I mean, I think it's an interesting idea. I'm still kind of like, God, how far can you stretch not being able to space effectively? Now, like, Aaron continues to hit threes, which is just like incredible. But I just kind of wonder, like, Russ and AG alone makes me nervous from a spacing perspective. And then you throw in CB and I'm like, really? You're going to put three non-shooters on the floor and just kind of make it work? But it kind of does. I don't know what to do. And I think one of the things out there, though, is Aaron is at a different point in his career than Mike is. Not a dramatically one. Like, Mike's getting up there. Like, Mike's going to be entering into his like prime here. But with Aaron, I do think that Aaron's confidence won't take a hit here. Like, Aaron knows this isn't a benching because of his performance. It's we need to mix the lineups differently.
Yeah.
And Russ is at this point in his career where he's like, that's where I'm at. I'm 35. Right. But CB and Mike are different. If you move those guys to the bench, it's going to hurt their confidence. And especially, I think anybody that still has lots of time ahead of them, right, in the career and more contracts to come, it is fair for them to be like, I have played well for this franchise. I deserve the Jokic minutes because they're going to get me paid.
Now, and here's one thing I'll say. You said that Aaron is more than happy to go to the bench. I'm sensing a little bit more frustration on his parts and just the way that he's not been able to kind of extend those minutes a little bit more. I don't know if it's necessarily a starting conversation, but he's only averaged 20 minutes per game over the last 7 games, and they haven't really ramped him up at all. He's not playing a lot of minutes. Like, he's playing 2 10-minute stints for the most part.
But he hasn't expressed any.
No, but except post game to Bennett on the road yesterday.
What did he say?
It was along the lines. Gosh,
I'll pull it up.
I don't remember the exact terminology, but it just I quote tweeted it yesterday. It does scream to me like, okay, this has probably run its course at some point here soon. But one other thing, like here's what I would actually do if I were the Nuggets. I would bench Russell Westbrook and I would bring him in at the 7-minute mark and I would play him the final 7 minutes of every single quarter. 7 minutes to 0 in the first, second, third, and fourth. He's playing 28 minutes and he will play almost all of those minutes with Nikola Jokic. Like that's what I would do. It doesn't really change up his thing, but it gets Aaron back into the starting lineup and they could start working that back in.
Okay, so he told him, I'm ready. I don't feel my cap anymore. Yeah, I'm ready. So it's on the training staff and the coaching staff now. So he wants to play. He wants his minutes restriction lifted. Yeah. That's not about starting or not starting.
Sure.
The other thing I would say here is, and look, I didn't see him after the Wolves game, so maybe he's much better. But I'll just say, like, after the 2 games last week, Aaron looked like hell after. And I think they got it. Like, I do think they got to protect him a little bit. So
that's also something that a lot of people noticed during the Wolves game specifically, was that he looked a little slow, looked a little bit hampered. I can't speak to that. It's not something that I noticed as much in the moment. And I certainly have not gone back to watch that game. That's for sure. But it is interesting that he is really pushing for that, but he may just not be ready for that physically.
Yeah. All right. Up next, we're going to talk about scary hours. What are the trades that around the Western Conference would scare you the most as a Nuggets fan? Plus, what's a trade that Denver could make that would absolutely send shivers down your spine? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Nuggets. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams. I don't know what teams those are. Endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook of Super Bowl 59. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to go to lockedondaily.com and get our daily newsletter. We've got lots of great stuff in there from all sorts of folks, so make sure to check that out as well. Looking for this. Hurricane says, please don't talk about trades. The Avs fans in the chat are still in mourning.
Yeah.
Tough weekend for my wife.
Yeah.
Miko was my favorite too, so I'm really bummed. He was my favorite Av. So I'm like really bummed out. I am an Avs fan, by the way. That's the one thing I'm here to give you is I am an Avs, and I have been actually since I was in high school.
That's cool.
So tough. Go to Locked On Avalanche though to process all this and understand more about it. Go check out the guys at Locked On Avalanche. Shout out to those guys for doing the show. Okay. Let's start with the Western Conference. Let's kind of go through these things. I'm going to give you a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is completely breezy, no problem. 5 is I'm having a panic attack. All right. I'm going to go through these for you. The Oklahoma City Thunder trade for a significant wing upgrade a la Cam Johnson. How does that make you feel?
4. There are holes in Cam Johnson's game, to be clear, but the biggest weakness for the Thunder right now is that they are liable sometimes to miss the open shots that are generated from their spread offense. Cam Johnson would be an upgrade there, and he's 6'9", to the point that, like, yes, he can be attacked on defense, but I don't know if Denver has the personnel to attack him that seriously. So that would be a tough one.
The Dallas Mavericks adding a high-profile wing or center to their rotation.
Wing or center, so like a
wing
type.
Everyone keeps. I don't know why everyone keeps using it.
You know why?
I'm trying to think. Who's like an actual wing that could be on the block?
Bruce Brown.
Yeah, let's say the Dallas either gets Bruce Brown or just
Kelly Olynyk,
Nikola Vucevic.
Oh man, they're already so unstoppable offensively that I don't know how Denver would be able to guard a Luka Nikola Vucevic pick and roll or a Kyrie Nikola Vucevic pick and roll, and they would still have Derek Lively in the playoffs. So, I mean, that one's probably a 5-alarm fire for Denver.
Okay.
If they were to get Vucevic. If they were to get a wing, like hypothetically, if it was Bruce Brown, not as stressed about it because I think Quentin Grimes is really good. I think that Najee Marshall is really good. That guy would likely be cutting into those guys' minutes. So
one of the guys gets moved in that instance.
I see. Like that's a 2. That's a 2.5 for me. Like I don't think that's where they would need to upgrade.
Okay. If the Los Angeles Lakers were to add either Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, or another high-profile star player, how would you feel with them? I feel like everyone's just kind of written them off, and like they're fifth in the West. They're a game behind Denver in the loss column.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because of the point differential. Nobody actually takes what they've done seriously because whenever there have been in a matchup that people care about, they lose. Although they did just do a great job against the Boston Celtics. So now I'm not sure how serious that is. I'll say 3. I will say 3. I still think that Denver has that psychological advantage over the Lakers, kind of like Minnesota has that over the Nuggets. And it's still going to come down to the fact that the Lakers don't have anybody that can stop Jamal Murray when it matters. And they just don't have anybody that can stop Nikola Jokic when it matters. And that's one where Michael Porter also gets to go off at the same time. So Denver's just not going to be stopped by them. And Zach LaVine or Nikola Vucevic or anybody like that is not going to change that.
What if the Lakers get John Collins and Walker Kessler?
Ooh, that reminds me of the 2020 bubble Lakers a lot more. A lot more. They'd have to trade Hachimura, I assume. They'd have to trade
Gabe
Vincent. That's interesting. I would say that's more worrying than them getting a third star to me.
Okay. Houston, I don't think is that real risk of making a move. If Memphis were to consolidate for Cam Johnson or another high-profile wing, we can use Herb Jones as a stand-in here for that level of player. How does the Memphis scare you at all?
I'm still trying to figure them out, man. Like, I don't know how that matches up. Denver didn't match up with them with Jokic, and they didn't have Ja the first 2 times around. So I don't know how to say, like, how to match up with that. The fundamental issue with them is that they still have Zach Edey and Brandon Clark trying to match up with Jokic when they're trying to have the Jaren Jackson Romer defense. And while Jaren is good enough to kind of play that small ball 5 role at times against Joker, I still think that he's going to get buried just because he's too small.
Can I ask you something? Why does the Joker matchup matter? And what I mean by this is there's nobody he's not, like, it's just Rudy. They're like, the Wolves are the only team that have shown that they can actually deter him. Everybody else is water that he wades through.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody else, I think, in the Western Conference you can really point to. Maybe Houston, because they've been a pain because of their scheme. But, like, I don't know if there's anybody else. Like, so that's kind of my question. Is just like, why would it with Memphis? It's like, why is the Jokic part the matchup that matters?
It's just where Denver's everything starts for them. It's where everything starts. And if you can force Joker to have a B performance as opposed to an A performance, then you're already at such an advantage because the Nuggets don't have the margins everywhere else. So, like, that's where I start with most of my evaluation of this. Now, what I will say, Jalen Wells has proven to be a great defender already, and Jamal Murray would struggle with him. Like, that's one matchup that he would have to figure out. He would have to navigate. That is one as a rookie that Jamal could probably figure out over the course of a series. But early on in that series, I bet Denver goes down 2-1. That's for sure. Yeah. So if Cam goes there, then I'll say a 3. I'll say a 3.5. Kind of erring on the side of, yeah, I'd be more worried about them for sure.
Okay, some Nuggets trades. If the Nuggets trade Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, and the 2031 lottery protected to Miami for Jimmy Butler.
I knew this was coming up. I don't think this is such a bad deal as a lot of people have made it out to be. I am not as worried about the spacing because Denver has found a way to navigate without spacing. And just the fact that Porter has a very specific, and you and I have argued about this before, but I'm kind of with you at this point. Porter's versatility as a shooter has been a little bit lessened of late. There's less that he's doing dynamically that I've been really concerned about. So is this the one? Is this the move that you make if you're Denver? I don't think so. So I'd be more worried than I wouldn't be. But what's the worst thing in the world? Jimmy expires and then you get to reset your books a little bit because you get rid of the Zeke Naji contract and clear Michael Porter. It's not great, but it's not terrible.
That doesn't get them under the cap, does it?
No, but if you remember on the Clippers front, what they were able to do with signing Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn and being able to fill out their roster a little bit with some of these mid-level contracts, it just allows Denver the flexibility to do stuff like that. And look at where the Clippers are right now. They've figured some stuff out.
You can give Reggie Jackson the player option.
They could certainly do that too.
Okay.
I've got another one for you.
Okay, shoot.
Michael Porter to Toronto for Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk.
My understanding is that talks for Bruce kind of fell apart, that they weren't able to, they kicked around that idea and there's just not enough interest. The requirements from Toronto for them to engage further in conversations were not things that Denver was willing to commit to.
Okay.
Maybe that resets as we get closer. I would love to see Bruce back. I missed just covering Bruce.
He was fun. Kelly would be an upgrade to backup center. Although I gotta admit, man, DeAndre Jordan has been wild. He's been great.
So here's the thing: is that Kelly Olynyk is the guy 2 years ago. I've been banging the drum for Kelly Olynyk, but I'm telling you, that's expired. I love Kelly. I think that he's a vet in this league that's done a lot. He's had some real big playoff moments. Kelly had a fantastic career. He's at the end of it, and now the defense is going to be not worse than DJ. It's going to be similar. I guess here's the thing: there will be nights when Kelly's will be worse than DJ's average.
Sure.
Right. And there'll be nights when it's better, but it's probably a little bit more variable around that. And that to me is a reason probably not to do it. Yeah. So I don't think it's a bad trade because I think you get Bruce back. And I think Bruce would just be everyone would be they would be let's go.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll also say you're just, here's the real trick with the MPJ stuff is just this. If you look at anything in terms of the game flow, if you go, I'm trying not to use advanced analytics here. Just go back and look at how the games transpire. And you're going to notice a lot of the Nuggets' best games correlate with strong MPJ performances. He is making he sets a floor for them that is way higher because of his ability to space the floor. And look, they are up to 9th in opponent 3-point rate and 9th in opponent 3-point percentage.
That's
Denver's done the thing. I'm looking at dunks and threes right now. They are 9th in opponent 3-point percentage at 41.5% distribution and 35.3 at 3-point percentage. So, that's a wild turnaround from where they got into. I wonder because they've been restricting threes. If you keep noticing a lot of these, it turns pretty quickly. So
interesting.
I think they're within range, but I'm still just you got to be able to space the floor with one pure shooter. And MPJ's that guy.
Is there any other trade that you're wanting to throw out here?
No, not for now.
Okay.
Because I don't think we need to consider Phoenix until we see what they're like.
Zach LaVine, is that dead?
For Denver?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually more likely that Zach LaVine is with the Bulls after the deadline.
Okay.
Now, maybe on Tuesday, we can talk about Lonzo Ball to the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that another time. Up next, we're going to reset some of the Nuggets expectations. I'm really curious to get Ryan's thoughts on this. The highs and the lows, the Nuggets are in 4th. What constitutes a success and a failure for Denver this season? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Nuggets.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Sorry, tech difficulties. I'll try to figure this out. Thanks for being with us here on Locked On Nuggets. Hope your weekend was great. All right. let's talk about resetting Nuggets expectations. I'm hungry now. Even though I ate like a ton of barbecue today. The Nuggets right now, Ryan, are 28-17. They're fourth in the Western Conference. They have the sixth best schedule-adjusted net rating for dunks and threes. They are fourth on offense. They're 18th on defense. They got a long way to go to get those numbers that you think that they're going to get post All-Star. Yeah, I can tell. You probably felt a lot better about that bet you made with me before the Wolves game.
Yes, I did, sir. Thank you.
But like, look, they've beaten OKC, they've beaten Golden State, they've beaten the Lakers. The Boston game doesn't count because Joker didn't play. Yeah. The Cavs games were both wipeouts, and that I think is a little concerning. They've got future matchups. They've struggled with them. Like, they're even with Mavs, right? We've got some more matchups to kind of figure out there. Minnesota's obviously still a problem. Memphis is probably favorable. I'm really curious to see the Houston matchups. Those are going to be very interesting, I think, as the season develops, because I think Houston's a team that they can't win the title, but they can make a lot of noise. Let's start with success.
Okay.
What's the lowest bar for you to consider this season a success for the Denver Nuggets?
I think they would have to improve upon last year's result. I think they would have to make the Western Conference Finals. Not necessarily win it, but I think they would need to make progress even after losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I think that is where the bar should be set at this point for, okay, not moving backwards, not feeling like you're moving backwards, not feeling like you're just spinning the tires. You have to feel like you're going in the right direction.
In the comments, Gabe says, Golden State, the Lakers, crying emoji. Man, let's get real. The Lakers are fifth, man. And I don't think the Warriors are going to make the playoffs because I am a huge skeptic of how that team is constructed and where their sense is at. I'm writing about that over at Paroxysm. They are not good. But like, look, there's a very good chance that they face the Lakers in the playoffs. There's a very good chance that they face the Clippers in the playoffs. There's a very good, which Ryan would love. There's a very good chance that they face like the Suns, right? So like these matchups, like this is who they're going to face. I think I will go a step further from you. I think they got to make the finals. I just don't think you can say that making the conference finals is good enough when you have the best player in the league and you're going to finish with the top 4 seed and you've been to the finals before. Like, you've won a title. The expectation, I think, has to be you got to at least reach the finals. I don't think here's the thing with OKC. As good as they are, and like I love this because these are big questions, and I love big questions. As good as they are, no one feels like they are that dominant. History says like they're on track for the best SRS of all time.
Yeah.
That's point differential versus strength of schedule. They're, by that metric, they are on, and everybody below them, the next 6 teams won the title. Okay. On the other hand, it's the Thunder. Like, they feel beatable.
Still,
so that questions. So that's the thing there is, if they get to the Western Conference Finals and they lose to the Thunder, or they lose to the Mavericks, or if they lose to the, like, I don't know how the Wolves would get there, but if they were to get there, I'm trying to think who else. Like, are they going to lose to Houston? Like, Houston's really good. They're 30-14. But like, are they going to lose to Houston in a playoff series? So I just kind of reached the point where I'm like, look, you got to make the finals in order for this to be a success. Anything short of I think you can lose the finals, like, especially if it's Boston. I don't think there's any shame in that. But I do think you got to make the finals.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think that they are a worse team. I listened to your show yesterday. They are a worse team, and they lost in the second round last year, partially because of injuries, partially because of tiredness, partially because of matchup. You can name all the circumstances, sure. If there is a circumstance where I say, hey, they fell short and there was a distinct reason for that and it was something that the Nuggets couldn't control, so be it. If it is under their control, if they are relatively healthy, if they do get good performances on a consistent basis from Jokic and Murray, then yeah, you start to have those questions like, okay, so where did it actually fall short? What was the issue? And that could really cause some major shakeups at some point. So I totally agree. I understand. I have lower expectations for them than you do, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, and I do think like there's also levels of disappointment, right? Like we're talking about success. Let's talk about failure.
Yeah.
What constitute a failure to the point where a roster shakeup and or coaching change must occur? What's that bar?
Yeah, it's easy to say first round exit. Anything below that, certainly, like that's like they're not going to fall out of the playoffs and into the play-in. I don't think. I think that they are in a good place where they can avoid that. But if they didn't, then that's a big shocker. But even in the second round, like if you have a lead in the second round and then you blow it like they did last year, that's 2 times in a row.
And I think it's interesting to ask this question because there's so many tough teams that are worse than Denver.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're, because I think it's very easy for Houston fans to be like, we're 30-14, you're 28-17, we're better than you, we have a better net rating, like we're better than you. Okay,
Yeah.
but in a playoff environment, nobody's going to think that, right?
Yeah.
If the Nuggets lose to the Houston in a second round series, which I'm telling you is on the table because Houston matches up well, has the talent, and like that's a coaching matchup that makes me, the Malone guy, be like, yee. I worry, right? If they lose to the Rockets in the second round series, everything's going to be on the table. If they lose to Memphis in the second round series, everything's going to be on the table. If they lose to the Wolves again in the second round series after they traded Cat, everything's going to be on the table. If they lose to the Lakers, everything's got to be on the table, right? I think this matters too. If they make the Western, let's say they make the Western Conference Finals, okay? Let's say that they beat the Lakers in they actually win some actual games. Let's say that this one goes 6, okay?
Yeah.
So they beat the Lakers in 6, tough series, but they beat the Lakers in 6, and they go up, and the Mavericks slide into the 8th spot, and they upset the Thunder, okay?
Your calculus changes entirely.
Yeah,
you can't lose before the finals at that point.
Yeah. And well, that's tough though, because I'm honestly like, man, Dallas is a really tough team.
They are a tough team, but they're in your tier. And at that point, like that's one where if you are the Nuggets, you have to see the opportunity, kind of like the Celtics did when they saw the Nuggets go out. Like if you see that, you have to be like you have to be carnivores. You have to be ready to eat and say like, look, this is how we have to handle it. Like this is the opportunity that you've been waiting for. And so that I think is a completely fair assessment. I do think that this Nuggets team, like I was talking about this with my brother yesterday. We both did the thing. Okay, what percentage chance would you give the Nuggets to win the title? He said 7%, and I said 5%.
Ooh.
And that's pretty low, right? That's pretty low. And was it a little bit reactionary to the Wolves loss? Maybe. But Denver's just got holes, man. And it's one of the reasons why I continue to think that they have to be aggressive at the trade deadline. They can't just sit on their hands like they did last year and like I was concerned about last year. And like they just have to bite the bullet and say, we are probably not good enough. We have to get better. I don't think that they're good enough. And so like if you get into a situation where you have this same roster and they lose, I'm not going to be that surprised. But that's like that's kind of like on one hand, on the other, this Nuggets team has to continue striving for more than just that. And
you felt like you were so high on them. It felt like you were so high on them just like a week ago. That Wolves loss. The Wolves loss really was like a slashing of the tires. I tried to calm people down after that one on the show to be like, I get it. I get like it's okay. But people were that was really like the air just like got like out of the balloon.
It's tough because like that's what playoff basketball is going to look like, Matt.
Right.
That's what's going to happen when a team knows that they have you and picks apart your weaknesses every single time. And the Wolves have the Nuggets right now. They own the Nuggets right now. Will that change? Maybe. I don't know. I hope that it does for Denver's sake. Is it going to need a personnel change? Maybe. We may not, may have to wait a little bit longer than that. But that's what I'm saying is that all of these teams, there's going to be some serious weaknesses in Denver's personnel.
Last thing, I just want a yes or no.
Okay.
Do you think you're trade thirsty a little bit?
Yeah, I am ready for Denver to change things up.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We'll talk about why on Tuesday. We'll go to that on Tuesday. I think it's a great topic for Tuesday. Check out Swipe a Show on Tuesday, and then we'll be back on Tuesday night for No Jinx. We'll have a post-game show tomorrow night after the game versus the Chicago Bulls. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. Hit the like and subscribe. We'll see you guys again next time here on Locked On Nuggets.